a tense and stormy piece of argument going on between Apple and Qualcomm. A global attack is what Qualcomm calls it. Remind us what's at stake here.
Well, what's fundamentally at stake is a lot of money. These two companies arguably led the smartphone revolution, made the most money in their relative industries out of that. Now, as things are slowing down, as we're turning from absolute growth towards margins, who's the most profitable, Qualcomm has been the one supplier that Apple just hasn't been able to quit. It licenses its technology very expensive way, so whether Apple uses its chips or not, like the rest of the smartphone industry, still paying. Apple is clearly trying to do something about that, and according to Qualcomm, is lying to try and do something about that.
Roger, how do you interpret these sorts of battles in the courtroom, help hindering technology?
I think he had it exactly right. It's the stakes, particularly in smartphones, are so huge. I mean, let's face it, this is the largest product in the history of technology. And so you have this situation where you could build, as in the case of Dialog, an entire company off of essentially one component for one customer. And you know, that kind of scale we haven't seen in a long, long time. The battle between these two is going to come down to politics, I think, as much as it is to the law, because there's a lot of murkiness around intellectual property law, and they're both very well funded. They both have enormous economic self-interest here. I think that the law probably favors Qualcomm in this, and I suspect that the common sense favors Apple. And right, and so they're both going to have leverage points around this, and we'll probably, you know, we may make some new interpretations of the law around this, right? Because this will be a case that people will look at, you know, as a precedent for other things. And much as with Rambus 7-8 years ago, where, you know, there was a huge battle over essentially an analogous kind of situation, Rambus in the end lost. And they didn't lose because they didn't have valid contracts, and they didn't lose because the intellectual property law favored their position. They lost because politically the other people had more power. And in this situation, I suspect Apple will have more political power than Qualcomm.
And that's right, and a big part of what Qualcomm argued today was like, look how valuable we've been to the development of this industry. Look how much money we've put into it. Look how much we've created. We're not just some patent troll trying to cash in on some little, you know, sliver of an invention. We give you everything that we invent and patent up until today, we give you.
But it's not just the US that hasn't liked this, and not just Apple that hasn't liked this. This has been international. South Korea has fined them, and we've seen other players coming after Apple.
Well, and if you take what Qualcomm said at face value, that's been Apple working behind the scenes, going to China, going to Japan, going to Korea, whispering in the ear of regulators and saying, these are the bad guys here, you need to do something about this.
Very quickly, trial, do we know when that will begin?
Not at the moment, no. I mean, I asked the General Counsel last night, how long is this going to take? He said, realistically, at least a couple of years.
And it won't be settled there. It'll be appealed, and the fight's going to go on. The amount of money is just too huge to take whatever the answer is at face value.
May the